Mario RPGs. Some people, myself included, would call these some of the best games in the Mario franchise. Earlier last year, we got what seemed to be the impossible. We got a remake of Super Mario RPG, a remake of The Thousand Year Door, and a brand new Mario and Luigi game. All of these were announced and released within the span of a year of each other as well. Pair those with the Mario plus Rabbids games and Origami King, and we have probably the most impressive lineup of Mario RPGs on any Nintendo console. But that has me wondering, what could be next for these games? What does the future hold for these spin-offs? Today I want to take a look at each sub-series and give my thoughts on what Nintendo could be planning for each one. First, let's start with Mario plus Rabbids, since its last entry was released the longest ago. It makes me sad to say it, but these probably aren't coming back anytime soon. The only reason I say that is because of David Soliani. For those of you who aren't aware, David was the main director for Kingdom Battle and Sparks of Hope. From what I can tell, he was the one pitching these games to Ubisoft, and he was kind of responsible for their existence in the first place. However, as of 2024, he has retired from Ubisoft to pursue different endeavors, and he seems to have taken a bit of staff who worked on Sparks of Hope with him. Now, I want to make it very, very clear, because I know there are probably going to be people who get mad at me, so I just want to make my position on this very crystal clear. I'm very proud of him for leaving, and I wish him the best in his new path in life. I'm not blaming him for having other aspirations in life, okay? I think it's great that he decided to leave. I'm disappointed that his leaving means we'll probably never get another Mario plus Rabbids game again. Like I said, he was kind of the one really pushing for these games to exist. Even if we did get a new game, I don't think it would be as good without his work on it. I'm really excited to see what he comes up with next, but I'm sad this franchise is likely just dead and buried at this point. It is still technically possible for them to make a new Mario and Rabbids game, but again, I don't think it would be as good without David there. That's just my thoughts, though. Let's move on, though. Up next, we have Super Mario RPG. Now, this is an interesting one because it's not even a series of games. It's one game and a remake. However, I do think that there is a chance, albeit a small one, that we could get a sequel. And there's one single tiny piece of evidence that makes me think we could see a Super Mario RPG 2 on a random Nintendo website. For those of you who are not aware, on Nintendo of Japan's website there is a Mario portal where you can browse his full history. It includes every mainline game and most of his spin-offs. In it we can see several Mario sub-series like Mario Kart, Party, Tennis, Strikers, Golf, etc. However, we can also see an interesting little logo right here in the corner for Super Mario RPG. This could mean that we will get more games in this series, but I don't know. Another interesting thing about this site is this Other tab near the bottom. In it, we can see the Mario and Sonic games, as well as the Mario plus Rabbids games, so they actually are included on this website. I find it interesting that the Olympic games and the Rabbids games aren't put at the forefront like Super Mario RPG is, though. It could be because Sega and Ubisoft partially own those games, but I have no clue. I would honestly love to see a Super Mario RPG sequel, but we can only really wait and see. I think there is a ton of potential here for a more traditional RPG starring Mario, and I'd love to see them try it again sometime. Next up is Paper Mario. This one's pretty obvious. Yes, we are definitely getting a new game in the future in the series. Paper Mario has been around since 2000 and has consistently gotten a new game every 4 years or thereabouts. However, there is one big question on everyone's mind, and that is, how's this new game gonna play? Unless you've been living under a rock, the Paper Mario series has been pretty inconsistent for years now, and it's no surprise that people are genuinely curious how the next one will play. The first three games are more like traditional RPGs, but the last three are more experimental and felt like point-and-click adventure games, if you ask me. Will they keep the combat in Thousand Year Door? Will they do something more like Sticker Star and Color Splash? Or will the combat be in real time like Super Paper Mario and the Origami King? My thought is that they will keep the combat from the Thousand Year Door. After the remake, it only makes sense. The newer games got a lot of hate from people, especially for the combat. After the remake brought back that classic style of combat, I would find it hard to believe they'd just ditch it again in the next one. I would personally love to see them support both sides of Paper Mario with two separate developers, like Goodfield develop a more modern Paper Mario game and get Intelligent Systems to develop one in the classic style, but I know that Nintendo wouldn't be willing to invest that much money in a series of games that were almost universally hated on the internet. They also traditionally did not sell very well either, so I'd be really, really surprised to see Nintendo ever try something like that again. That being said, I don't think the modern formula is going away forever. Even in the Thousand Year Door remake, we could see DNA from the Origami King in there. The soundtrack was clearly influenced by the Origami King, plus each world has its own unique remix of the battle theme, and there were brand new boss themes that sounded straight out of the Origami King. And even the new bosses like Wacka and Prince Mush clearly played like the Origami King boss fights. So even though that series will likely never see the light of day again, it's almost guaranteed that we will see the best parts of it come through in future games. And who knows, maybe we will get a more comedy-focused game like Color Splash in the future with the Thousand Year Door combat one day. Only time will tell, but I know the future is very bright for Paper Mario. Next, I'd love to talk about my favorite sub-series of Mario games, the Mario and Luigi games. This is the first sub-series of Mario RPGs I ever played, and I've been in love ever since. After playing Brothership, I completely fell in love all over again too. I know there are a few people in the fandom who didn't really like Brothership because it's very padded and bloated, and while I agree, that's just not me. Thankfully, it sold really well and got really positive reviews, so I imagine that we'll get another game at some point soon. I definitely think the next game will be an original game as well. For those of you who are unaware, Alpha Dream was the original developers for every single Mario and Luigi game that was released. They made 2 remakes on the 3DS, one of Superstar Saga and one of Bowser's Inside Story, before eventually filing for bankruptcy. Probably the most well-known bit of trivia about these remakes is that they sold horribly. I think Nintendo will want to avoid this situation of low sales again, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was a few years before we got a remake or port of an older Mario and Luigi game. However, ports and remakes are inevitable, and I know one of them will come along eventually. For me, I'd love to see a remake of Dream Team in Brothership's engine. The original game has a lot of flaws and is honestly one of my favorite games in the whole series. I'd love to see some of those flaws ironed out in a remake and put in full HD on the Switch 2. I'd also love to see Partners in Time and Bowser's Inside Story come to the Switch 2 at some point in the future, just so all of those classic games can be played on one console again. I'll even take Paper Jam just because of preservation's sake, and I don't really think it's that bad of a game. Finally, there is one sub-series I have yet to talk about, and if you are a die-hard Mario fan, you might know where I'm going with this already. If not, allow me to introduce to you Puzzle and Dragons. I really can't believe I'm talking about this game franchise in the year 2025, but here we are, so let's just get right into it. For those of you who aren't aware, Puzzle & Dragons is a mobile game that was first released back in 2012. The game is a free-to-play game, similar in style to Candy Crush, if that makes sense. You are given several objects that all have different colors, and you just need to match 3. Once you do, your party releases an attack related to that color, I guess. By November of 2014 in Japan, this game had been downloaded over 32 million times. In 2015, Puzzle & Dragons Z plus Super Mario Bros. Edition was released on the 3DS. The gameplay here is definitely a choice. It's not up my alley, but I can definitely understand why someone would like it. Since 2012, there's actually been quite a few different Puzzle & Dragons games released, so I wouldn't necessarily call the series dead. Hell, even one game just released recently back in 2023 for Apple Arcade. However, do I think Puzzle & Dragons Super Mario Bros. Edition is making a comeback anytime soon? No, I don't. I've literally never heard a single person in real life talk about this franchise, and I've never heard a single person online talk about the new Super Mario Bros. Edition of this game. One of the biggest problems with marketing this game is that it is ugly as sin. The 3DS game looks like the type of stuff that you'd see on a knockoff Mario backpack, if that makes any sense. The next game would have to look nothing like this to be even remotely interesting, especially in an era of Wonder and Bonanza. I'd also like to point out that this is one of the few games not mentioned on the Mario portal, even when you sort by consoles and search for just 3DS games. The fact that Nintendo doesn't even mention this game on their website specifically dedicated to mentioning games like this sends a pretty strong signal to me. It sounds like they would rather stay away from something like that ever again. We could always get a mobile game in this style, since Nintendo is in that market now, but I really just don't think so. Anyways, that's all the time I have today. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. As you can probably tell, there is a special place in my heart for all of these franchises, and I'd love to see them all stick around. Realistically, that just isn't feasible, but I definitely think at least Paper Mario and Mario & Luigi are locked in now. I definitely have hope now, more than ever, for the future. And I think the Mario spin-offs are going to continue to be good and likely will start to get better now that we are in this new era. Mario feels like a totally new franchise on the Switch too, and I'm so beyond excited to see what they come up with later on. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.